Hello everyone, welcome back once again to my educational channel called Learn Bio with Janet. Today we'll be discussing KSSM Biology Form 4 syllabus, right? Chapter 3, subtopic 3.4. The title is Applications in Daily Life of the Concept of Movement of Substances Across the Plasma Membrane. And the applications involve mainly osmosis, such as the consumption of isotonic drinks and the use of saline solutions in hospitals. Now, apart from that, we'll be studying about liposomes, right? Which are tiny vesicles that help to transport active substances or drugs, such as the drugs for treatment of cancer, to the targeted tissues. So it's very interesting to find out how the liposomes are quite similar to the plasma membrane in their structure, right? And this is an innovative method of delivering drugs to the tissues. So apart from that, we'll be discussing some hot questions, as this chapter has been asked quite often in the structured and essay section, right? So let's find out how to answer hot questions for this section. Now, the learning standards for today's lesson are as follows. 3.4, movement of substances across the plasma membrane and its application in daily life. Number 2, correlate the concentration of cell sap in a plant tissue with the phenomena of plant wilting. 3, explain by using examples the application of the concept of movement of substances across the plasma membrane in daily life. And then communicate about reverse osmosis in water purification. Okay, so first we'll discuss plant wilting, and then we'll look at some examples of the application of concept of movement of substances across the plasma membrane. And that includes isotonic drinks, saline solutions, and so forth. And then we'll discuss reverse osmosis. So the first topic related to osmosis is wilting in plants. The learning standard is we should be able to correlate the concentration of cell sap in a plant tissue with the phenomenon of plant wilting. Okay, so first of all, let's consider a fresh, firm plant, like this plant here. Its stem is upright and firm, and then the leaves are well supported and held out in an almost horizontal position to receive the maximum amount of sunlight for photosynthesis. So how do its cells look like? Now, most of its cells will be in the turgid condition, right? Meaning to say water has diffused into the cells from the hypotonic, the more dilute soil solution. Okay, and then the vacuole in each cell expands and presses against the cell wall. So it creates the turgor pressure, right? And makes the cell turgid and well supported. Okay, so in a turgid cell, there's a lot of water and the cell is firm and well supported. So if all the cells are like this, or most of the cells of the plant are like this, then the whole plant will look fresh and firm, right? And get support. But how about the wilted plant? So for a wilted plant, when we see a wilted plant, we know that it lacks water. So, or it could be that excessive fertilizers were used, right? And this caused the plant to wilt. So how does that occur? Now, excessive use of fertilizers in the soil may cause wilting in plants. These excessive fertilizers will dissolve in the soil water or soil solution and make the soil water become hypertonic, more concentrated, and having higher concentration of dissolved substances compared to the cell sap of the roots. Okay, that means the cell sap of the roots is hypotonic, more dilute than the soil water, right? Then water will always diffuse from the hypotonic solution into the hypertonic solution. Okay, so water diffuses out by osmosis out of the cell sap of the roots into the soil, right? And the cells lose water, so they become plasmolized. Now, what is the plasmolized condition? Let's look at this cell here. So in the plasmolized condition, water diffuses out of the cell into the hypertonic, the more concentrated uh, soil water. So when the cell loses water, its cytoplasm will shrink and the plasma membrane will pull away from the cell wall here. So now the plasma membrane is here, okay, separated from the cell wall. Then the cytoplasm shrinks and the vacuole also shrinks. That is the meaning of a plasmolysed cell. What is in a plasmolysed cell? Cytoplasm shrinks, vacuole also shrinks, right? So in this condition, the plant, the cell cannot be supported, well supported, although it has a rigid cell wall that maintains its shape, right? But in this condition, it cannot provide support to the plant, okay? So in a wilted plant, it has a lot of this plasmolysed cell and a lack of water in the cells, okay? It has plasmolysed cells and a lack of water. So cells lose water and are plasmolysed, and the plant will lose support, okay? And then it will wilt. Right, so can we help the plant to regain its fresh and firm condition, to get back to this state? Yes. Plant cells recover if the wilted plant is watered with plain water, okay, or tap water. So when we water the soil with the plant, when we water the plant and the soil with the tap water or plain water, the soil water will become hypotonic, more dilute, okay, compared to the cell set of the cells. So water will diffuse back into the cells, okay, from the hypotonic soil water by osmosis. And then the vacuole will expand back again, because it has received water. Now this condition is called, or this process is called deplasmolysis. That means D means to remove, remove the plasmolysis, okay, the plasmolysed condition from the cell. All right. So when deplasmolysis occurs, the cell will become turgid once more. The cells will become turgid once more, and the plant will regain its support. Okay, because each of the cells will then have support again. Right. However, if plasmolysis is allowed to prolong, to occur for a long period of time, wilted plants may never recover from the wilted condition, or plasmolysed condition, and they may die. Now, so here I've highlighted or put in a different color all the keywords, right? And some are underlined to show that it's even more important. So all the words in blue are the keywords here, like hypertonic. You must mention hypertonic to cell set, not just hypertonic to the roots. You write soil water is hypertonic to roots, it's wrong. Hypertonic to the cell set of the roots. Compare the soil water with another solution, which is the cell set. Okay. Osmosis, plasmolysis are all keywords. Now let's discuss the next learning standard. Learning standard number 3. Explain by using examples the application of the concept of movement of substances across the plasma membrane in daily life. Right? So mankind has made use of this concept of osmosis, especially osmosis, to apply to daily life, alright, in various aspects like food preservation, okay, and in the preparation of isotonic drinks and so forth. So number 1, the examples of the application of osmosis in daily life is number 1, food preservation by salting and pickling. Pickling means to make the jeruk, which are the sweet, sour, and salty foodstuff that are preserved, right? Like pickled mango or pickled lime and so forth. Number 2, isotonic drinks for athletes. Number 3, rehydrating drinks for diarrhea patients. Number 4, saline solution used in the medical field. And the 5th one is not so related to osmosis, but it's related to the concept of movement of substances across the plasma membrane too, is the liposome, the use of liposomes, okay, in the field of medicine and cosmetic industry. So we'll start with the food preservation. So number 2, the application of the concept of osmosis in food preservation. All right. So osmosis is used or applied in the preservation of fruits, which we call pickle or jeruk, and also in the preservation of vegetables and fish, such as salted vegetables and salted fish. So how does it work? How do we preserve the fruits in this way? Most of us like to eat the salted, the pickled fruits. So, for example, pickled mango or lime, right? And also we have pickled chilies also. So first of all, for example, for mango, the mango slices are cut up, washed and cut up, and then a jar is prepared, which is clean and sterilized. And then a concentrated salt or sugar solution is prepared by dissolving salt and sugar in water and then boiling the solution. So you have to put in a lot of salt and sugar inside the solution. Now, next, cool down the salt or sugar solution and immerse the mango strips or the fruit strips inside the solution. So what happens? The concentrated salt or sugar solution is hypertonic to the cell sap of the food, right? That means it has a higher concentration of dissolved substances, which is the salt or sugar, compared to the cell sap of the food cells, right? So water will have to diffuse out of the food cells, which have a hypotonic solution, that is the cell sap, out into the hypertonic salt or sugar solution, right? So water diffuses out of the food cells by osmosis, and this causes the food to undergo dehydration, meaning it will lose water and then it will lack water. So this condition is not suitable for bacteria to live. So the bacteria cannot survive in the tissues of the mango. Neither can it survive in the concentrated salt or sugar solution, because water will also diffuse out of the bacterial cells, okay, by osmosis, and the bacteria will die. So this prevents the growth of bacteria, which can decompose the food. Thus, pickled food can be preserved or kept for a long time. Sometimes vinegar is added. So vinegar is an acid, contains acid, and it also it will cause a reduction in the pH of the solution. So again, bacteria will not be able to survive because it cannot survive in acidic environment, and thus the growth of bacteria is prevented and the food is well preserved, okay, for some time. Now, how about salted fish? Same principle, because when we rub salt on the raw fish, the salt will dissolve and form a hypertonic solution. Then it will draw water, it will cause water to diffuse out of the fish cells by osmosis, and the fish cells will become dehydrated, so the bacteria won't be able to survive in the fish tissues, and the fish can last a long time. Now let's discuss the use of isotonic drinks. You may have also drunk isotonic drinks after exercise, right? There are various brands of isotonic drinks that are sold in the market, right? And the taste is something like a bit salty, a bit sweetish. Okay, so what are isotonic drinks? The definition. Isotonic drinks are drinks that have the same concentration of salts and sugars, same osmotic concentration as body fluids. That means the same concentration as the body fluids. And if we drink it, it will help to maintain the normal osmotic pressure of body fluids. It will help to maintain the normal concentrations of salt in our blood and our body fluids. Okay, so that will help to maintain health, and there will be no lack of minerals or water. So the function of isotonic drinks is to help athletes and those who exercise and sweat a lot to replace the water and the electrolytes that are lost. Now, what are electrolytes? Electrolytes are actually the mineral ions like potassium, sodium, calcium, and chloride, which we all need in our body, right? But these are lost through perspiration or sweating during vigorous exercise or sport. And if we don't replace them and don't get enough of them in the food, if we don't drink enough water and get enough electrolytes from the food we eat, it can cause dehydration and it can cause a lack of it can cause electrolyte imbalance in our body, okay, which may affect the health of the body. So after sweating, it's good to replace the water and electrolytes that are lost by drinking the isotonic drinks. This is one of the ways to replace the electrolytes and the water that's lost. So the word iso here implies that the drink has the same concentration of salts and water as the blood, plasma, and the body fluids and other body fluids. Next are rehydration drinks, which are different from isotonic drinks. Now, rehydration drinks or oral rehydration salts, ORS is a short form for it. So oral rehydration salts or rehydration drinks contain a mixture of electrolytes, which are the salts like potassium and sodium and chloride, and carbohydrates like glucose, right? So these come in a packet form. Usually it comes as a powder, and you have to dissolve it in water, stir the water, and then drink the water. Okay, drink the solution. So it is used to replace the large amount of electrolytes and water that's lost in people suffering from diarrhea, vomiting, or dehydration. So this is meant for people who are sick, who are suffering from diarrhea. What's diarrhea? Diarrhea in Malay we say cirit birit, or Chinese is la tuzi, right? So where the person has a stomach ache, that can be caused by food poisoning or by infection of pathogens and so forth. So certain types of microorganisms can also cause diarrhea. Okay, and food poisoning can also cause diarrhea or vomiting. So as long as these occur, these symptoms occur, diarrhea or vomiting, right? It will cause a large amount of body fluid to be lost from the body. And this body fluid, okay, contains electrolytes and water. So if these are not replaced, it can cause dehydration, all right? And it can even cause death if it is very serious, okay? So explain why a doctor prescribes oral rehydration salts to a person suffering from diarrhea or vomiting, all right? Now, the answer is like this. Diarrhea and vomiting cause the body to lose a lot of water and electrolytes, right? So rehydration salts contain the right concentration of water and electrolytes, as we can see here from this packet here, to replace the water and electrolytes that are lost when it is dissolved in water and ingested by the sick person. Okay, now you can see oral rehydration salts. Normally they contain sodium chloride, which is salt, potassium chloride, sodium citrate, and some glucose to give energy to the person also. So here's a hot question related to oral rehydration salts. Explain why the following fluids cannot be used to effectively treat patients who suffer from diarrhea. So a person who has diarrhea and has lost a lot of body fluids, can they be given plain water to help them recover? No, because patients who have diarrhea, they lose a lot of water, nutrients, and electrolytes, which are the essential minerals like potassium and calcium and sodium. So plain water doesn't contain the nutrients or the electrolytes. It may have water, it may be water, but it doesn't contain the electrolytes. So it cannot replace the minerals and the nutrients lost. All right. So the patient may not recover by just drinking plain water if he has serious diarrhea. All right. He will not recover. Now, how about fruit juice and sports drinks? Now, they have too much sugar, usually if they are the commercial fruit juices and commercial sports drinks, but they don't have enough of the important electrolytes that are lost during diarrhea and vomiting. So they may not be able to rehydrate the body completely and supply the electrolytes that were lost. So the fifth topic here is saline solution. Now, saline solution is used in hospitals, right? And usually it comes in a bottle like that. Normally, okay, saline means salt, right? So it actually saline solution contains sodium chloride, but in a specific concentration. So saline solution used in medicine is a solution which is isotonic, or having the same concentration as, alright? So isotonic to the blood plasma and other body fluids like tears and so forth. Now, it contains 0.85 to 0.90 grams sodium chloride per 100 ml of the solution, or in percentage is 0.9%. It's 0.9% or 0.85 to 0.9% sodium chloride, as stated here. So it is used in the hospitals to treat dehydration and correct the electrolyte imbalances, or correct the loss of electrolytes, the lack of electrolytes in a person's body. So usually it's hung up like that. I can see one bottle here, but it's not very clear because it's a plastic bottle. And this saline solution is connected to the person's hand here, okay, so that the saline solution can drip into the vein of the patient. And also, apart from the saline solution, some nutrients or medication may be put in also into the person. But basically, it is a saline solution. Now, why use a saline solution? All right, now let's read on. So, why use the saline solution of 0.9%, specifically 0.9%? So, the saline solution replaces the fluid or water, fluid meaning the water and electrolytes that are lost in the dehydrated person, and it also maintains the normal shape of red blood cells because it is an isotonic solution that's isotonic to blood plasma, right? So water will diffuse in and out of the blood cells by osmosis at the same rate in the isotonic solution, and it prevents crenation of blood cells, which may happen if the person is very dehydrated, so basically it is used to keep the patient in a normal state, where the blood cells are in a healthy condition and and maintaining the normal shape and structure of the red blood cells. So here's a hot question that may be asked in the essay section. All right, why are patients in hospitals given saline solutions intravenously, that means into the vein, directly into the vein, instead of be given plain water? Why not just put plain water inside the bag here, okay, to flow into the patient's vein, okay? Right, let's look at the answer. So first we must mention what the saline solution is like. So a 0.9% saline solution is isotonic. That means it has the same concentration as the blood plasma. So it's isotonic to the blood plasma. Okay? That is the one that's used by the hospitals. 0.9% saline solution. Not any percentage, but it must be 0.9%, around that. Thus, water diffuses in and out of the blood cells by osmosis at the same rate. Okay? And there's no net movement of water across the plasma membrane of blood cells. So the blood cells maintain their normal shape and stay healthy. Now, if plain water is given directly into the vein, what happens? Let's say a lot of plain water is dripped into the vein over time. So the blood plasma will become hypotonic to the intracellular fluid of the red blood cells. Right? So if it goes directly into the vein, the effect of the plain water is greater, right? But if it's just a little bit of plain water, it's okay. But if it's a lot, then it will dilute the blood plasma, which will become hypotonic, more dilute than the intracellular fluid of red blood cells, than the fluid inside the red blood cells. Then the water will diffuse from the hypotonic solution into the hypertonic solution, right? So from the blood plasma, the water will diffuse into the cells by osmosis. And then blood cells, they don't have cell wall, right? So the red blood cells will swell up and burst because they undergo hemolysis, the bursting of red blood cells. Okay? And the patient may die due to that condition. So one tick, one mark here. Now the next application of the concept of movement of substances across the plasma membrane involve the liposomes. So this is a very interesting application and an advancement in the technology, okay, for delivering drugs and substances into the body cells, okay, inside the body. Okay, so what are liposomes? Now the word lipo means fat, from the word lipid, lipo, and some means body. So it's a fat body. Why you call it fat body? Okay, let's find out. So liposomes consist of two parts, right? The first part, internally, there is an aqueous solution, a core or center that contains an aqueous or watery solution, and then is surrounded by the outer layer, which is a phospholipid layer. We call it phospholipid membrane. All right. Now, if you look at this phospholipid bilayer membrane, you'll see that it is very much like the structure of the plasma membrane of cells. Okay. Now, you see, the first thing is that a phospholipid molecule consists of a hydrophilic head, the pink round structure here, or the blue one here, and this is water loving. Hydrophilic means water loving, attracted to water, and then two hydrophobic tails, right, which is water repelling, so they face each other. They face inwards to each other. The tails face each other. So so it's called a fat body because it has a phospholipid bilayer that contains a lipid in it, right? So it's called a fat body. So what is the function of a liposome? Now, liposomes can be filled with active substances or medication or drugs, which are then transported inside the liposome to targeted tissues. Okay, so let's see where they are carried. Now, since there are two areas here, the hydrophilic area is the one inside the cell. It has water in it. So this area is called the hydrophilic area, and the area in between the phospholipid molecules here, okay, in the phospholipid membrane, is called the hydrophobic area. That means it's a water repelling area. So for water soluble drugs, it is carried in the, it must be contained inside here in the aqueous core or aqueous layer. All right, that means the hydrophilic area. Whereas the water insoluble or fat soluble drugs or substances are transported in the hydrophobic area here. Okay, examples are vitamin D, which are fat soluble. Examples for water soluble substances can be vitamin C, which can be used in cosmetic products. So it can be transported in the aqueous solution here, in the hydrophilic area. Okay, so why do you want to use liposomes to transport the active ingredients or products or drugs? The reason is because liposomes can protect the drugs or active substances, okay, which from being destroyed. For example, sometimes the liposomes can be eaten, taken orally, and then they will land up in the stomach where there are gastric juices. These gastric juices have hydrochloric acid that can destroy the drugs, right? That can break down the drugs or damage the drugs. So, but the liposomes, if they are transported in liposomes, the membrane here can protect the drugs from being destroyed. Okay? So, thus, drugs and medicine can then reach the targeted cells. Okay? So, they can pass through the stomach without being destroyed by gastric juices, and sometimes they are then absorbed into the intestinal wall, and then transported maybe by blood or by other means to the targeted cells. Okay, so once they arrive at the targeted cells there, then the bilayer may deteriorate, may break down, the phospholipid bilayer may break down, and then the liposomes will release their inner drug contents to the cells. Okay, So this liposome can shield the drugs from the body's aqueous environment because of the phospholipid bilayer, which is a lipid, which is made up of lipids. So what are the advantages of using a liposome? Firstly, it can carry both lipid and water-soluble drugs. Okay, so water-soluble drugs are carried in the center here in the aqueous solution, and then lipid-soluble drugs are carried in the phospholipid bilayer here, right? It is biodegradable and non-toxic, so it's made up of, the lipid bilayer is made up of the same fats that are present in the plasma membranes, okay, in the body. So they are non-toxic and they are biodegradable, meaning that they can be broken down. Biodegradable means they can be broken down naturally. Over time, they will break down. So thirdly, a liposome increases the effectiveness of drugs because it can transport the drugs to the target cells before the drugs get damaged or destroyed. And fourthly, it increases stability of drugs via encapsulation. So by enclosing the drugs inside it, okay, in the liposome, the drugs are in a stable form and they can be transported to the tissues, targeted tissues. Okay, so the liposomes can be filled with even with cancer drugs and transported to the site or the tissues, the targeted tissues to act on the to help in the treatment of the disease and act on the tissues. Let's look at an interesting HOTS question on liposomes. Delia uses a facial cream containing liposomes, which enhances the effectiveness of the active ingredients. Explain the role of liposomes in skin care products. 6 marks. Right, so this can be an essay question or it can be also asked in the structured question. So, role of liposomes, highlight that. Skin care products, such as facial cream. What's the role of liposomes? So firstly, we have to explain what liposomes are. So a liposome is a vesicle that contains an aqueous solution encased in a phospholipid bilayer membrane. Secondly, a liposome can be filled with the active ingredients, which are then transported to the targeted cells. So how do they help to deliver or transport the skin care products or ingredients in the skin care products, right, to the cells? So the liposomes are used to protect the active ingredients and then to transport them, okay, into the lower or deeper epidermal layer of the skin, to the lower parts of the epidermal layer. All right. So for skin, the uppermost layers here of the epidermis are dry and dead cells, right? Contain dry and dead cells. So probably there will be no effect on the cells if the active ingredients just stay on top there. Okay, so the liposomes can help to transport these substances and protect these substances from oxidation or destruction, all right, so that they can arrive at the lower parts of the epidermis here, which contain the living cells. Okay, so that the cells can receive the active ingredients and maybe it will enhance the growth and the production, the growth of the cells and the production of new tissues in the skin. All right, just as an example. So the liposomes are used to protect the active ingredients and transport them into the lower and deeper parts of the epidermis so that they can carry out their function. Okay, so that the active substance can be more effective. And without liposomes, the active ingredients in the facial cream, for example, vitamin C, which can improve the condition of the skin, will be easily oxidized before reaching the lower layers of the skin, right? So once we apply vitamin C on the the cream that contains vitamin C on the surface of the skin, the vitamin C is exposed to the air if it's not inside the liposome. So it can be easily oxidized by the oxygen in the air, right? So let's look at this animation. Let's say this cream contains a lot of these tiny vesicles called the liposomes with the active ingredients of the cream inside, right? So once the cream is applied on the skin, then it will move down to the lower layers. After that, the phospholipid bilayer membrane of the liposome will then break down or deteriorate or decompose, and then the active ingredients will be released into the tissues here, all right, to carry out its function and to affect the condition of the skin, all right. Right. So if it's just the cream that's applied on top without, and the cream is, the active ingredients are not in the liposomes, let's say. So this cream that's applied on top, it will take time to diffuse or to move into the lower layers of the epidermis. And in the meantime, some of the active ingredients may deteriorate or decompose or be oxidized, right? So the cream may not be so effective. So finally, another technology that we have to know about that relates to the concept of osmosis is called reverse osmosis. Let's look at the learning standard. Communicate about reverse osmosis in water purification. So what is the meaning of the word reverse osmosis? Reverse means berbalik, right? So reverse osmosis, RO, okay, RO, is a technology used in water purification to extract fresh water from seawater using desalination, the desalination process. Now, desalination means to remove the salt. D means to remove. Salination has to do with salt. So mankind has learned how to get fresh water, fresh drinking water from seawater by using the desalination process, whereby the salt in seawater contains a lot of salt, right? Now this salt has to be removed, all right, in order to get the fresh water, obtain the fresh water from seawater. Okay, so this reverse osmosis is a very interesting technology, right? Innovative technology used to purify the seawater and extract fresh water from it. Okay, so how are all the salts and impurities removed from seawater to produce fresh water? Okay, let's have a look. So in a reverse osmosis equipment, pressure is applied on one side, okay, to push the seawater through a semi-permeable membrane, which only allows the water molecules to pass through it. That means the membrane has very, very tiny pores that only allow H2O, water molecules, to pass through it, but not bigger molecules like fluorine particles, salt, even sodium ions and chloride ions cannot pass through this membrane, this reverse osmosis membrane. And microorganisms also cannot pass through. Thus, only pure fresh water is released on the other side, is produced. So this is the membrane here, we call it the reverse osmosis membrane. It has very tiny pores that only allow water molecules to pass through it. These are all the pores, right? And it removes molecules heavier than water, such as sodium ions, lead, and dissolved minerals. It removes all this, right, by filtering them, making sure that they don't pass through the membrane, so that only the water molecules will pass through, and in that way we get fresh water on this side. Okay, seawater is on one side and the fresh water produced is on the other side of the membrane. Okay, so reverse osmosis is better than carbon filtration in that can rid the water of particles as small as 0.001 micron. Okay, and this will then remove about 99.9% of all the sediments and contaminants in the water, whether it's seawater or other types of water. Whereas carbon filtration can only remove particles as small as 1 micron, but not smaller than 1 micron. For reverse osmosis, you can remove particles smaller than, as small as 0.001 micron, 0.001 micron. Okay, now this is just a fun fact. You don't have to remember this. Okay, but to help you understand what reverse osmosis can do, it can just get rid of all the foreign particles, even ions that which are not water molecules, right? All these cannot pass through the reverse osmosis membrane. So reverse osmosis membrane removes molecules heavier than water. Okay, for example, sodium, lead, and dissolved minerals, and also microorganisms. Right, so here is an animation for reverse osmosis. Okay, so in this container, there are two parts separated by a selectively permeable membrane with very tiny holes. Okay, that only allows water molecules, which are very tiny, to pass through it. All right, now, so in one part here, in the first section here, the left side, all right, the salt water will go in here, all right, into this equipment. Then pressure is applied using a high pressure pump. The pressure is applied to increase the pressure on the salt side, the salt water side, all right, of the membrane. And this will force particles across the semi-permeable membrane, but only those particles that are smaller than the pores in the selectively permeable membrane. Okay, so when bigger particles or molecules try to cross this semi-permeable membrane, it cannot. Okay, it will be prevented because it's too big, cannot pass through the pores. Okay, only water can pass through the pores of this semi-permeable membrane. Okay, water can pass through. Water molecules can pass through. Bigger molecules that are bigger than water molecules cannot pass through the semi-permeable membrane, and neither can microorganisms, which are bigger in size, right? So in this way, only the water molecules can cross over to this section, okay, of the container, and so this fresh water will be produced. Okay, fresh water will be produced that is pure, pure water, which is very clean or pure, and this then is extracted. Okay, is channeled to another place. So mineral ions, foreign particles, microorganisms, all cannot pass through this semi-permeable membrane, selectively permeable membrane. Only water molecules, because of the size of the pores in the membrane. Right, so a question asked by some students is, why is this process called reverse osmosis? All right. So is it because it's the opposite of osmosis? Yes, it's right. It is the opposite of osmosis in the sense that the flow of water molecules is from a hypertonic solution to a hypotonic solution. Okay? Whereas in the normal process of osmosis, water diffuses from the hypotonic solution, the more dilute solution, to the hypertonic solution, the more concentrated solution. All right? That is our osmosis rule. Water always diffuses naturally from the hypotonic solution to the hypertonic solution. All right? From the region of higher water potential or higher concentration of water to the region of lower water potential or lower concentration of water, and that's B, from A to B. That's osmosis. Okay, but now we are using pressure to force the water to flow from the hypertonic solution to the hypotonic solution. All right, so this is artificially brought about, okay, by applying pressure and also by making sure that the selectively permeable membrane only allows water molecules to pass through it, because the pores are just tiny enough for the water molecules to pass through, but not the other molecules, not even not the solute molecules, okay? Not the dissolved substances, all right? Now, I'm sure that you have drunk reverse osmosis water before, right? Sometimes you look at the mineral, look at the water bottle, when you buy the water, they put there reverse osmosis. This water is produced through reverse osmosis, okay? So what are the advantages or disadvantages of drinking reverse osmosis water, RO water? So it can be a hot question in the essay section. Explain the benefits and the bad effects of drinking reverse osmosis or RO water. Okay, and also it's good for us to find out. So it can be explain the good benefits, means the good effects, right? So explain the good and bad effects of drinking reverse osmosis water, right? So to explain, we have to first explain what the process is about, all right? So reverse osmosis is a water purification process that uses a semi-permeable membrane to filter out harmful particles, salt, microorganisms from water. The water produced contains less harmful foreign particles and microorganisms, right? After that, so the fresh water produced will contain less harmful foreign particles and microorganisms because these particles have been filtered out by the semi-permeable membrane that prevents the particles from moving across it, okay, into the other side where the fresh water is produced. So reverse osmosis produces pure fresh drinking water that is safe for consumption. But what is the bad effect of drinking RO water over a long period of time? Now the bad effect is that the reverse osmosis process also removes useful minerals like calcium and magnesium from water, because these minerals cannot pass through the selectively permeable membrane. All right. So if you drink this RO water long term, it will cause mineral deficiency, lack of minerals like calcium and magnesium, as compared to drinking plain boiled water, which may contain more of these minerals, right? And this can cause tiredness, muscle cramps, and other symptoms in a person, right? So this is the bad effect of drinking reverse osmosis water, right? Right, that's all for this lesson. I hope that you have understood and learned something from this video, which is which explains in detail, and also this video has given you a few hot questions. All right, so for this subtopic, hot questions, essay questions are very common, and we have to know how to answer all of them, okay, in order to score for this section. So do look through the hot question and copy down the answers when you have time. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. So do share, like, and subscribe. Take care and goodbye for now.